Hello and welcome to another Tri-tutors video. In today's video we're going to be continuing our discussion of Othello, specifically looking at Act 3 today. And as you can see on the screen, we have one of the most famous quotes from this play that Iago says to Othello in this act, warning him, or warning in inverted commas more like, about the dangers of jealousy. He says, "O beware, my lord, of jealousy, it is the green-eyed monster which doth mock the meat it feeds on." So let's get into a scene-by-scene analysis, and then we'll talk about our themes in this act. So Act 3, Scene 1, we have a bit of a comedic interlude, which is very much appreciated in this very tragic play. And it comes about as Cassio is asking to speak with Emilia. Remember, Emilia is Desdemona's attendant, so he's trying to speak with Emilia to arrange to speak with Desdemona because he's going to follow Iago's advice. He wants to plead with Desdemona to speak with Othello on his behalf. Act 3, Scene 2 is not very important. Othello is just sending some letters in the scene. So let's move on to Scene 3. So in Scene 3, the Act 3, Scene 3 is a very important scene. We see a lot of the different themes come into play in this scene. So Desdemona assures Cassio that she will petition Othello for Cassio's reinstatement, and we see Desdemona is very sweet, she's very sort of moral, she's very loyal, and she says to Cassio, "No, don't worry, I totally understand. I'm going to definitely ask Othello to reconsider this punishment that he's given you. You are a loyal person." And so obviously she doesn't realize it now, but she's digging herself into a very bad situation. Iago is then talking to Othello, and he draws his attention to the fact that Cassio and Desdemona are conversing alone, which obviously was his plan all along. And as they're walking by, he's like, "Oh look, Cassio and Desdemona are sitting together." Iago deftly and subtly manipulates Othello into questioning Desdemona's faithfulness. And if you read this part, if you're going to read any part of the play in a lot of detail, I would highly suggest this particular scene, because the way Iago manipulates Othello is so masterful. He doesn't actually say anything, he just says something between the lines, and then he gets Othello to say the actual thing for him. It's absolutely remarkable. It's sort of this masterclass in manipulation, in the power of rhetoric as well. Othello and Iago discuss that appearance should equate to reality, yet it is not so. So there's a lot of, as I said, the discussion of themes here, and not just the themes coming into play, but Iago and Othello literally discuss so many different themes in an overt way. They are literally discussing appearance versus reality, and Othello is sort of wistfully wishing that appearance equated to reality, which we obviously know it does not. It is quite ironic that he is speaking about this very theme to Iago, who epitomizes the sort of segregation of appearance and reality. Iago warns Othello of the dangers of jealousy, so that's where we had our quote that we discussed right at the beginning of the video. Othello is torn by Iago's words regarding Desdemona, and so I've got a typo there with Iago's name, so please ignore that. But it's really important to note that in this scene we have Othello at the start of the scene. He is still very much believes that Desdemona is faithful to him. Iago sort of manipulates him, and he starts thinking about this, and at this point though, even in we're like the middle of the scene, he's still like, I get what you're saying, but Desdemona is 100% faithful. By the end of the scene, we're going to see he's completely switched sides. So he's completely gone the opposite route. I don't know if we would say like a 180-degree shift. He has completely changed his mind. There's a theme of destiny and fate, and we spoke about that in previous videos. And I've spoken a lot about how, perhaps for me, there's a lot of free will, because I think that characters choose their own fates or choose their own destinies. But here we have this theme of destiny and fate, because Iago has expressed doubt in Desdemona, and we're going to see that the ending of the play is now predetermined, because Othello is not going to be able to get this image out of his head. He's not going to be able to ever believe another tale that's going to be told. And we're going to see that different people tell him the tale that Desdemona is innocent, but he's not going to believe them. So once this seed of doubt has been rooted in his head, the ending of the play with this tragedy is almost predetermined. And that's why we have that theme of fate and destiny. Desdemona mistakenly drops the handkerchief which Othello gave her as a gift. And this is obviously significant because Emilia sees the handkerchief and she gives it to Iago. Because her husband Iago has been asking for this handkerchief, he's actually asked her to steal it. And she didn't want to steal it, but Desdemona dropped it, so she picked it up, she gave it to Iago. She doesn't know what he's going to do with it. Iago plants the handkerchief in Cassio's belongings. Iago knows that he has successfully poisoned Othello's ear, and there's a wonderful quote, I don't know if it's in the scene exactly, but just this image of like, it probably is somewhere in the scene, but pouring pestilence into his ear. So he has poisoned Othello's ear, he has fed him lies, and now Othello is not going to be able to get away from that. Iago recognizes that this misplaced handkerchief will serve as enough proof to convince the jealous Othello that Desdemona is cheating on him. So because Iago knows that he has manipulated Othello so powerfully, he understands that he doesn't actually need much proof in order to make Othello act on these doubts and these assumptions. And so he knows that this handkerchief, just by placing it with Cassio, is going to serve as enough proof to convince Othello to, kill Desdemona, and, this is how he's going to get his revenge. Othello transforms into a jealous, aggressive, and passion-driven person who demands Cassio and Desdemona's brutal death. So here we have that complete shift. He completely changes from being this very reasonable, rational, honorable man to being jealous, aggressive, and passion-driven. Iago still epitomizes the theme of appearance versus reality as he vows to obey Othello's demands. And just notice how strong Iago's manipulation is. He's able to turn Othello in a single scene. So as we were speaking about earlier. And then we're going to move on to scene 4, where this is going to be heightened because now Othello and Iago have been talking, and now we're going to see Othello interact with Desdemona now that he thinks that she is cheating on him. So Act 3, Scene 4. Desdemona naively continues her attempts to convince Othello of Cassio's loyalty and to reinstate him. So she keeps asking Othello to reconsider Cassio's punishment, and obviously we know that she is digging herself into a grave at this point because he is interpreting this as, oh, she's having an affair with Cassio, and that's why she wants to help him. Desdemona is distraught that she has lost the handkerchief, and Othello then demands to see the handkerchief. But Desdemona panics because Othello's tone is extremely harsh, and she lies, and she says that she hasn't lost the handkerchief, she just doesn't have it with her. Iago and Desdemona remark how out of character it is for Othello to be so angry and jealous, and there we can see the effect of the manipulation. And Cassio asks Bianca, who is a prostitute that he has been sleeping with, to copy the embroidery pattern on the handkerchief he found in his belongings. So important note about Bianca is she sort of is in love with Cassio, but Cassio does not care for her at all, and this is going to be important in Act 4 because of how Iago manipulates this relationship between Cassio and Bianca. But in this scene, we understand, the audience understands that Cassio does have the handkerchief in his possession. Note that he does not know it is Desdemona's handkerchief because obviously there is absolutely nothing going on between Cassio and Desdemona, and he asks Bianca to copy the embroidery pattern, this sort of like innocent request, because he likes the pattern. And this is going to lead us very nicely into Act 4, as I said. Alright, so some themes. These are the same themes that come up every single act, but let's discuss them in terms of Act 3. So appearance versus reality, obviously very significant in this particular act, because this is where Iago is really making the biggest strides in terms of carrying out his plan. He is going to appear like he is just nonchalantly asking Othello, why is Desdemona and Cassio sitting together? Or just casually noticing some things. And that links to the next one, which is friendship and loyalty. So he pretends to be Othello's friend, just saying, maybe you should be considering it. And as I said, if you read that scene, you'll notice how subtle he is, how his manipulation is so incredibly masterful. But in reality, he is putting his plan into action. Okay, love, obviously love is threatened in this act, and this act serves as a sort of prerequisite or as a precursor to the threatening of love later on. Jealousy, I mean, we have the big quote about jealousy in this act, and jealousy is significant because this is how Othello is driven to abandon his rational self. He becomes extremely jealous, and he wants to ensure that Desdemona and Cassio are, they pay for their crimes due to his jealousy. Passion versus reason, once again linked to that jealousy. Othello he abandons reason, he gives into passion. He's going to, later on, he's just going to believe, weird and baseless grounds of supposed evidence that Iago brings as to why the fact that Desdemona is cheating on him. So he gives into the passion, he abandons his reasonable outlook on life. Reputation and honor. This is very important because one of the reasons why Othello reacts so drastically to hearing that Desdemona is cheating on him is because of this theme of reputation. He believes that Desdemona is firstly damaging her own reputation and her own honor, and he cannot believe that she would do that. But furthermore, he sees it as she is challenging his reputation, his honor, and she's putting that on the line by cheating on him with Cassio. Racial prejudice is not a key theme in this particular act. Betrayal and trust links to that friendship idea. It's going to come a little bit later in more clarity. And fate versus free will. We discussed that key aspect of once Othello actually knows that, or has this seed in his head, has this idea in his brain that Desdemona is cheating, the ending is almost predetermined, but it's still going to take his actions to make it happen. I hope that has been helpful. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you for Act 4.